building and building and building.
After 4 long, tense days, we've reached a historic moment in this election. We can now project the winner of the presidential race. CNN projects Joseph R. Biden Jr. is elected the 46th president of the United States, winning the White House and denying President Trump a second term. We're able to make this projection because CNN projects Biden wins Pennsylvania, the former vice president, in his third run for the highest office, pulling off a rare defeat of a sitting commander-in-chief. With this victory, Kamala Harris is set to become the first woman and the first person of color to be the vice president. Again, CNN projects Joe Biden will become the 46th president of the United States. And Jake, he is now President-elect Joe Biden.
The people of this nation have spoken. They've delivered us a clear victory, a convincing victory.
Democrat Joe Biden emerged as the winner Saturday of a contentious battle for the White House as voters narrowly pushed him over the finish line to fix a battered economy and a divided nation, as well as fight the coronavirus pandemic. The declaration came just before noon after a batch of mail-in votes in Pennsylvania expanded Biden's lead in the battleground state so wide there was no chance of President Trump catching up.
They did, and we won.
That was all that was needed for major TV networks to declare him the winner of the state, pushing Biden's tally in the Electoral College beyond the needed threshold to 273 after days of ballot counting and nights of national nail-biting. Biden, who knows he's taking over a bitterly divided nation, used his first address as president-elect to call for healing.
For all those of you who voted for President Trump, I understand the disappointment tonight. I've lost a couple times myself, but now let's give each other a chance. It's time to put away the harsh rhetoric, lower the temperature, see each other again, listen to each other again. And to make progress, we have to stop treating our opponents as our enemies. They are not our enemies, they are Americans.
This
is the time to heal America. And that's the blueprint that will start on January the 20th, 2021.
He says thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Is that right? Did you hear that? That's Brooklyn.
as news broke late Saturday morning that Democrat Joe Biden captured the U.S. presidency. It was a celebratory moment for some.
Honestly, I'm just kind of relieved that this is over finally. It feels like a weight's been lifted off our shoulders.
And denial and speculation for others.
There's a lot of questionable things. They shouldn't be calling this election. There's dozens of lawsuits all over the United States right now. They should resolve those up.
Who decides?
In the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., people banged pots, honked their car horns, and set off fireworks while celebrating a Biden victory.
I'm so relieved. On Tuesday, I thought it was done. We were going to Trump, and then we're from Georgia, so we saw the mail-in ballots come in on Friday, and it gave me so much hope. If Georgia could turn blue, that we could turn this country blue, and we could get Biden as president.
Philadelphia was another city in a celebratory mood.
Biden won! He won! You know what? Goodness won! That's who won! Goodness, not Biden! Goodness!
But not everyone on the streets were on Team Biden. In parts of Michigan, backers of President Donald Trump waved flags and chanted their support for the man currently in the White House. And in Georgia, Trump loyalists gathered near the state capitol building in protest as Democrat Joe Biden was announced the victor.
I think it's a little premature. It just sounds like there's going to be multiple states with recounts and an awful lot of litigations.
Trump, who has made repeated claims of electoral fraud without evidence, immediately accused Biden of, quote, rushing to falsely pose as the winner. Biden's projected victory came after 4 days of nail-biting suspense over the outcome of Tuesday's election, with the counting of votes in a handful of battleground states still going on thanks to a flood of mail-in ballots.
Are taking to the streets to celebrate their new president-elect. In New York, thousands of people are in Times Square chanting songs and busting out a few moves. Over in the West, mass gatherings from both sides are taking place in parks and streets across Los Angeles. And in the country's capital, Joe Biden supporters have marched through the streets, blocking roads, and they're now gathering outside the White House. We have reporters across America, but we will begin by going to Tim Avia, who's in the thick of the celebrations in Philadelphia. Good morning to you, Tim. It looks like a party there.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly on this side of the fence, on the Democrat side, they are having a lovely time. They've got these breadsticks have just come out. They actually don't say they don't know why they have breadsticks. They're just waving them, doing whatever they can to rub it into the Donald Trump supporters on the other side of the fence, chanting 4 more years, chanting all votes matter, chanting Biden beats you. Just really trying to, I guess, rub it into the fact because what they say they remember from 4 years ago is the Donald Trump supporters saying make the Liberals cry. This time they have been rubbing their eyes, mocking the other side. That's what the Donald Trump supporters, they say that this is not over at all. That they will be, that Donald Trump will be in the White House for another 4 years. They, again, have been chanting back, vote fraud, stop the count. So that's an example of the divide in America right now. There's no better illustration of what's happening right here. Police separating the two sides in the middle.
All right, Tim Avia there in Pennsylvania, thank you. And Donald Trump has made his way back to the White House, passing by jubilant crowds who are celebrating the election victory of Joe Biden. Our correspondent, Amelia Adams, is in Washington, D.C. Amelia, what's the latest from the White House?
Well, Jane, we've spoken to White House staff. They say the president has no plans to make any sort of speech or statement at this stage. Of course, that is always unpredictable. He returned here about an hour ago, and it was quite incredible to watch his motorcade making its way along the mall where thousands of people were celebrating his loss. That is the scene in the Capitol at the moment. Donald Trump wearing his white Make America Great Again cap and his golfing clothes, because that is where he was when the US networks made this call that Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. Donald Trump was playing golf, so he has returned here now, insisting that the election is far from over. It wasn't long before we heard from him in the form of a statement saying, we know why Joe Biden is rushing to falsely pose as the winner and why his media allies are trying so hard to help him. They don't want the truth to be exposed. He went on to say Joe Biden hasn't been certified as the winner of any states, insisting that his team will be pursuing the vote count and alleged voter fraud through the courts. Meantime, of course, the streets all around the White House where we are absolutely full of people celebrating. We saw one man climbed up a traffic pole and sprayed the crowd with champagne. There were people singing, there were people dancing, very jubilant scenes on the streets of the White House.
You see my shirt, it says Black Votes Matter, and I think it was black voters that took us over the top in Atlanta, in Milwaukee, in Detroit.
Yeah, such a stark contrast to what we saw on those streets just months ago. Of course, protest, race riots, the president's team of law enforcement clearing that very plaza with tear gas, the president himself doing a walk across to that church. Well, today, what a difference. The people of Washington, D.C., in their own words, reclaiming the streets and reclaiming the Capitol as they celebrate this news. Jan.
Well, it's time now to take a look at how the papers are discussing Joe Biden's victory. Solange Moujon is with us in the studio for a special weekend press review. Hi, Solange.
Hi, Hack.
Nice to see you on a Sunday.
Nice to be here.
Solange, how is the American press covering this momentous day?
Well, essentially across the board, they are ringing the victory bell. Biden beats Trump. That is literally the headline across nearly every paper in the U.S. today. But beyond that, what's interesting is to see how the papers are highlighting different issues. Now, the Washington Post takes a somewhat factual tone. It calls attention to, quote, the rebuilding of the blue wall or the flipping of states like Michigan and Wisconsin, as well as Trump's legal challenges to the vote count. Now, for the New York Times, they draw attention with the subheader about Kamala Harris's breaking of the glass ceiling, of becoming the first female president and minority vice president. And you can sort of sense in the paper's articles that there's a sigh of relief coming from the New York Times. Now, for the Philadelphia Inquirer, it is all about their hometown boy, the state's quote-unquote native son, as they call Biden, because, again, he was born in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
And there is, I think it's fair to say, some outright jubilation coming out from the opinion pages.
Yeah, there's a lot of happiness, and there's also quite a lot of teasing going on. The Boston Globe, in one editorialist wrote, quote, "Mr. President, you're fired," making reference here to Trump's previous life as a TV reality star on The Apprentice, where he became famous for saying, "You're fired," to the contestants. Another opinion piece from the editorial board of the Globe says that a darkness has lifted with Biden's win, that it is a victory, quote, for a better version of America and one that still needs to be realized. Now, the Times editorial board takes essentially the same tone, saying, quote, "Having peered into the abyss of autocratic nationalism, the American people have chosen to step back from the brink," end quote.
And Solange, let's of course not forget that over 70 million people voted for Trump. This is a divided nation. How is the conservative press covering Trump's loss? Are they calling for him to continue contesting the result of this election, or are they saying that really he should just leave the White House and accept the result?
Well, the fact that Trump is contesting the election, it's actually mounting legal challenges. This is actually coming in second place, even in the conservative press. You can see that on the cover of the conservative Rupert Murdoch-owned New York Post. And it says, "It's Joe's time," noting the record-breaking, as you said, outpouring of voters in this election. And the paper says that America has given her verdict. A hint here, perhaps, to Trump that it's time to concede, and one that's even more clearly put in the Wall Street Journal. The paper says that Trump has a right to contest, but he has to provide legal evidence of voter fraud, and whoever wins the legal fights needs to concede, noting that perhaps it is inevitable that Trump's re-election campaign would end like this, quote, "him claiming victory and frenzied antagonists denouncing him as a fascist," end quote. Now, the paper says that Trump hates to lose and will fight to the end. But they also argue that perhaps he would have done better to sort of focus on his having helped Republican senators keep their seats, and as well to leave the office with dignity, they say.
Well, cartoonists have no doubt been preparing for this day for a very long time. Solange, what have they come up with?
Yeah, you can tell that they are having a lot of fun with this announcement. Let's start with Peter Schrank. He's drawn the baby Dawn balloon, which you may remember. It was often at anti-Trump rallies, especially the climate ones.
And he famously didn't enjoy it at all, did he?
No, he did not like it at all. Well, here you have Joe Biden popping that baby balloon. He's holding a pin there to Trump's I won. Now, this baby theme is actually coming up quite a bit. Let's go with Chris Riddle. You have a baby Trump being told off by a rather disheveled and angry lady of democracy. And she says, no, it is Trump that is fired. No, you're fired, she says. Then you have Cal of the Baltimore Sun. He's there. You have Biden pouring water on Trump's witch hunt claims, literally melting the president down as he, the president, has a meltdown about losing. So there is also, let's move now on to the German press. There's a great matchup of covers, illustrations coming from Der Spiegel, the German weekly. In 2017, actually, they had a controversial cover, which you see there, of Trump cutting off Lady Liberty's head with the headline, America First. Now, that Statue of Liberty has been saved, according to Der Spiegel. And in this week's issue, you have Joe Biden making America great again. Yes, that is the slogan of Donald Trump's. It is also on the cover of Der Spiegel this week. And you have Donald Trump putting Lady Liberty's head back on and saving the immigration policies of America. And finally, a cartoon by Ann Telnies of The Washington Post. And you have Kamala Harris hitting that glass ceiling that remained unbroken in the last election, much to many women's and many Democrats' despair. And finally, it says that a woman can be vice president and perhaps one day president.
While many Americans celebrate, President Trump is refusing to accept defeat. His campaign says it will contest Joe Biden as a projected winner and plans to file legal challenges in Pennsylvania starting on Monday. Earlier at a press conference in Philadelphia, Trump campaign lawyer Rudy Giuliani said President Trump's campaign was, quote, denied its right to a fair count.
I don't think I wasn't supposed to hear that. I was one of the last carriers in the building. I don't even think he realized I was still there.
Okay, tell me where you work.
I work at the post office in Erie, PA.
Tell us what happened this morning, November the 5th.
This morning I was casing my route and I saw the postmaster pull one of our supervisors to the side. And as he was pulling the supervisor, it was really close to where my case was, so I was able to listen in. And I heard him say to the supervisor that they messed up yesterday. I was like, oh, what did they mess up on? And he told the supervisor that they had postmarked one of the ballots for the 4th instead of the 3rd, because they were supposed to put them for the 3rd.
Why was he upset?
Because he's honest to God, he's actually a Trump hater. But because it may have came from Pittsburgh. I don't know the whole details because I'm not a supervisor. All these ballots that are coming in today, tomorrow, yesterday, are all supposed to be postmarked the 3rd.
Do you believe that order still stands?
Yes, no doubt, considering that they still want us to pick up ballots tomorrow. They had a specific meeting, safety meeting, where one of the higher ups, Rob and Stephanie, basically told us to make sure we pick up the ballots and give them directly to the supervisor.
Rob, the postmaster.
Yes.
And you're telling me that they're still asking people to pick up ballots tomorrow, November 6th?
Yes.
There's a whistleblower inside your office that says that you have been ordering employees to backdate ballots to November 3rd from November 4th and 5th.
That's untrue, and I don't talk to reporters, thank you.
Okay, but we've had multiple sources say that this is happening. He hung up the phone on me.
We've just got done going through
the 2 garbage bags that we obtained from Bucks County Board of Elections out of the dumpster. This is some of the ballot paraphernalia that we've discovered. You can see some signatures from some voters here. Looks like these ballots, they spoiled on some of these. We have some pieces here. A number of envelopes with signatures. A couple full ones too. There's some more down here.
Just to reiterate, this does appear like an official ballot, and the rules were not followed correctly, right?
That's what it looks like to me.
Fair enough.
What reason would someone have to not follow that process? Ignorance, not knowing, not understanding, brand new law.
So there's a detailed process in place?
Yes.
And this clearly shows that the process was not handled?
Yes, whoever was the judge of elections didn't do it correctly. The poll workers should not have thrown it in the garbage.
Is it legal to throw it in the garbage?
I do not know if it's legal to throw it in the garbage, but it should be sent back to us. And so we can hold on to it for, I believe it's 22 months.
Where does the spoiled ballot ultimately end up at the end of its life cycle?
It will be stored for 2 years and then it will be shredded.
So if we can just kind of start over with the spoiled ballots as to what happens with them once they become spoiled.
So they become spoiled and they're spoiled on them, and they're going into a spoiled bag that's kept in the warehouse after election day for a period of time. And I did talk to some, I believe it's 3 years that we have to hold on to them, and then nothing gets thrown out. I believe after the period they get shredded, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
But first, today, the media have declared Joe Biden as the winner of the US presidential election. Even though it isn't their job to actually make that call, they've done so despite the requirement for recounts and, of course, the pending legal challenges. This is quite simply an extraordinary decision, but it certainly fits the history where the media have manufactured negative Trump tales and they've failed to cover the failings of Joe Biden. Now, I'm not here tonight to debate the merits of the respective candidates. We will all have our preferred one, and I continue to unashamedly support President Trump. Others on this panel have backed Joe Biden. I think that's okay because it leads to spirited and healthy political debate. But what's not okay is to see how a once great representative democracy has now been tainted by shameless media bias, blatant big tech censorship, partisan pollsters, and of course ballot tampering. Now, all of these things have been done to favour the Democratic Party candidate Joe Biden. The media were largely silent on the evidence linking Biden to his family's cash for access business, but they were more than happy to report as fact almost any spurious claim against President Trump. And of course the tech oligarchs, most notably Twitter and Facebook, also refused to allow the facts of that corruption investigation to be discussed widely on their platforms. And so while these tech oligarchs refuse to censor Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini, who advocates genocide of the Jews, they don't have any problem stopping discussion of one of the biggest political scandals in US history. Then we come to the pollsters. They were wrong, so terribly wrong, that they were either hopelessly incompetent or perhaps deliberately dodgy. But why would they be touting a blue wave and a massive win for the Democrats, even though it wasn't going to happen? Well, it didn't work, but their intention was clearly to discourage and suppress the Republican voter turnout. It's an old trick. But perhaps the most worrying thing about this election is the clear vote tampering. It's now known that a software glitch in swing state counting machines credited Trump votes to Biden. We've since heard from intelligence community insiders that claim the glitch is actually surveillance and vote manipulation software, known respectively as the Hammer and Scorecard. The existence of these manipulation tools is not disputed. It has been documented in 2015 court testimony by CIA contractors. But if that interference wasn't enough to guarantee victory, it's no coincidence that hundreds of thousands of Biden votes were dumped into the system during the dead of election night. There was no reference to where they came from or how they appeared. These, coincidentally, were just enough to get him over the line in some of those key swing states. Now, we also know that many dead people are recorded as voting, including Jason Lemoyne Daniel. He was born in 1850 and this year celebrates his 170th birthday. I bet he enjoyed the vote. Many happy returns, Jason. There are the videos, of course, of Democratic operatives admitting to paying people for their voting papers. We've seen thousands of Trump ballots dumped in drains and bins, and so much more. But such was the interest in this election that voter turnout was incredibly high, or perhaps I should say improbably high. It's also odd that Biden seemed to underperform 2016 candidate Hillary Clinton in almost every major metropolis. Oh, of course, except for those key swing states that used questionable methods and those flawed counting machines. Contrary to federal law, Republican scrutineers were denied access to view the counting process in key states, and whistleblowers insist that the post office has illegally been backdating votes received from registered Democrats. I could go on and on and on about the documented cases that raise questions. But thus far, the US media have simply dismissed the evidence of these fraud claims with nary a whimper. This sort of election manipulation used to be the preserve of banana republics and tin pot dictatorships. It pains me greatly to say that, unfortunately, we can't make that claim any longer.
Also in Lansing, President Trump supporters held a rally at the state capitol, energized by the president's declaration that he will not concede, and has his legal team filing lawsuits. And during a rare Saturday hearing, Michigan Republican lawmakers issued a subpoena for the election records. Our Victor Williams is live in Lansing. Victor, what are you hearing tonight?
Well, guys, first off, things have certainly calmed down from the way they were just a few hours ago. What you're seeing right now are a lot of the Biden supporters who have now come to, I guess, voice their opinions on the results. Very stark difference from what we saw just hours ago with a lot of angry Trump supporters who are saying they're just downright not accepting the results.
Hundreds flooding the steps of the state capitol shortly after it was announced Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States of America.
There have never been this many disappointed voters in an election period.
Tempers flare in the crowd as some supporters are just not willing to accept the current results of the 2020 presidential election.
If we can't all trust what's happening in terms of the vote counting, this will go on for another 4 years and on and on and on. It will never stop.
In the meantime, state Republican lawmakers have officially made a subpoena for election records to investigate the counting that went on at the TCF Center.
We want the results of this election to be true as far as we can possibly know. Human error does happen sometime. There are glitches with technology, but when a ton of extra votes show up for one certain candidate, I think everybody should be questioning that regardless of what their party affiliation is.
The investigation will take a look into the as of now baseless claims of voter fraud among absentee ballots.
There's a lot of fishy stuff going on that's been exposed. The glitch in the computer system, ballots from the post office, ballots found here, Trump ballots found in dumpsters.
And when the outcome of the investigation is revealed, that's when these Trump supporters claim they'll accept Biden as their new president.